Hello everyone, let's start with a new topic, Middle Paleolithic for UPSC Anthropology. So this period, Middle Paleolithic, is spanned from 300,000 to 30,000 years ago. और इस timeline में there are two important coincidences. First, around 300,000 modern Homo sapiens evolved in Africa, and just 10,000 years before the end of Middle Paleolithic, that is around 40,000 years ago, Homo neanderthalensis or Neanderthals, they went into extinction by coming in contact with the Homo sapiens that migrated out of Africa and came in contact with those of Neanderthal in Europe and Asia. Now, this Middle Paleolithic period, it also coincides with an important geological milestone, that is the Pleistocene epoch. The Pleistocene epoch, it's very important because it was the time which saw the evolution of three hominin species, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Homo sapiens. Now, this period, it spanned from 2.6 million years ago to 11,700 years. And this time, it was the evolutionary nightmare for our ancestor because this was a time of glacial and interglacial phases. बहुत climatic fluctuation थे, and maybe it was a boon in disguise क्योंकि जो rapid evolutionary adaptations होते हैं, evolutionary advancements होते हैं, वो strong adaptive pressure में ही हो सकते हैं. उसके अलावा देखिए तो अर्थ इज टू बिग फॉर दिस 300,000 years ago. So the rapid evolution of Homo sapiens from the whole hominin species that started with Australopithecine, it is quite a miracle because बहुत छोटे time में we evolved and conquered the world. So again, this period, a period of climate fluctuation, and this period also provided adaptive niche for both Homo sapiens and Neanderthal to coexist for certain time. But later हम देखेंगे इसमें because of the flexibility, agility, and resilience of Homo sapiens, and with their advanced toolkit, the Neanderthal, they went into extinction. Now, the Middle Paleolithic is about both Homo sapiens and Neanderthal, their toolkits, their social organization, and their cultural practices. Now, first toolkit or the tool foundation is Levallois Technique. So, Levallois Technique, it is often coexist with this word Mousterian culture. Mousterian means this culture, these tools, they were found in this site La Moustier in France. So that's why the name. And the people of that time, especially the Neanderthals, they employed this Levallois technique. So our evolutionary journey, it started with Australopithecine, then Homo habilis, who made the crudest, the simplest form of tools known as the older one tools. Older one tools बहुत simple है, just strike स्टोन को विद अ हैमर स्टोन और फिर उससे जो भी चिप्स जो भी फ्लेक्स निकलते हैं दे विल बी यूज्ड फॉर some purposes. Then came the Acheulean tool techniques, in which we saw the symmetrical hand axes, bifacial axes, sharpened axes, a sophistication, a technological leap. And then came the Levallois technique, which emerged around Middle Paleolithic period from roughly 300,000 to 50,000 years ago, which coincide with the evolution of modern Homo sapiens. And then this was identified at a site, Levallois Paris site in France, or the La Moustier site in France. But later on, major discovery, they revealed that this particular site, it had a global significance, especially because of it was employed by both Neanderthal and Homo sapiens. Now, what the Levallois technique is. So this technique in simple is also known as the prepared core technique. So इस technique में क्या होता है? First, a stone is taken, a core stone, and that core stone, it is shaped in a structure of a dome. Then in that dome, one structure, it is kept rugged, untouched, while the other structure, other phase, it is usually kept flat, sharp and polished. Now एक hammerstone की मदद से with the knowledge of mechanical principle, acute angle, the oblique angle, the hammerstone strike this flat piece and फिर आप देख सकते हैं अगर यहाँ पे अगर स्ट्राइक करेगा इस जगह पे स्ट्राइक करेगा तो particularly a very sharpened flake will come off और यही जो flake है they became the toolkit of Levallois technique. Now the procedure. So a prepare core technology that involved preparing a stone known as the core, and when the core is struck, it's a flat surface struck using hammerstone. It produces a flake of predetermined size and shape. क्योंकि जो flat surface है, it is already smoothened. So उसमें से with the proper application of mechanical angle एक flake निकल के आएगी. So that flake itself became the new tool. Now this process, first core is shaped in a dome surface जैसे बताया. Now a striking platform is created at the other end of core, which is usually flat and sharpened and polished. Then strategically flakes are removed using the mechanical principle, especially the principle of acute angle. When you strike at any dome surface, any curve and polished surface at acute angle, this kind of flake will chip off. और ये इस फ्लेक को देख के आप समझ सकते हैं कि एक साइड जो है इट विल बी क्वाइट शार्पन और अदर सरफेस जो है जो ऑलरेडी फ्लैट एंड स्मूदन है वो भी एक शेप की तरह काम करेगा. So the Levallois flakes, they were thin, uniform, and razor sharp on both sides. That's why they are named bifacial. And one thing is clear by looking at the principle, looking at the whole process, that this application, the preparation of flakes by this method, it might have used mental planning, a mental template कि पहले इस तरह से फ्लेक बनानी है, इस तरह से स्ट्राइक करना है, इतने डिग्री पे स्ट्राइक करना है, इतनी बड़ी चिप चाहिए. सो अ मेंटल प्लानिंग, अ मेंटल टेम्पलेट विल बी देयर. फिर सिक्वेंशियल थॉट, जो मेंटल टेम्पलेट होगा उसमें सीक्वेंस भी होगी. एंड देन मैनुअल प्रिसीजन, द मैकेनिकल थिंग which also involves the motor coordination, the hand-eye coordination. So the predictability of outcome, that if this polished dome is struck at particular angle, this will yield this kind of flake. This predictability, it represents a conceptual intelligence, which is the ability to visualize a product before creation. उसके लिए एक शॉर्ट वर्ड ये है, mental template, mental slate, mental template. So this production, it suggests cognitive ability, especially the advanced one. Now the function of Levallois tools. So first they were used as scrapers to scrap off unnecessary, unwanted things like cleaning hides and preparing leather. Then they might have used as points. So points we use as a spear tips, which might indicate advancement in hunting strategies. Then such tools might be used as blade and knives for cutting meat, for plant, or even crafting wooden tools. And then barines and awls for perforating material and engraving. Perforate means to make hole inside bones or wooden work, wooden shafts, etc. So these tools, they show functional efficiency because when you look at the evolutionary timeline, we started with simple toolkit, the old one tools, which were quite simple. एक पत्थर लिया, उसके ऊपर दूसरे पत्थर से स्ट्राइक किया, चिप निकल के आई, उन्हीं चिप को फिर जो जहाँ पे यूज है वहां यूज किया. बट उसके बाद देखते हैं अशूलियन टूल्स की बात करते हैं. देन सच स्टोन टूल, सच चिप्स, दे वर फर्दर पॉलिश्ड, फर्दर रिफाइंड, और फिर उनके साथ ही आए बाईफेशियल हैंड एक्सेस, स्क्रैपर्स, पॉइंट्स वगैरह. बट दिस वन वाज clear, functionally sophisticated. It signifies functional efficiency. because thinner flakes they make cutting easier and faster. And such toolkits they also enable early humans, Neanderthal and Homo sapiens both, to butcher animals, scrape hides for clothing, to dig roots, and perhaps build shelters. Now, the cognitive and cultural implications. So, the Levallois technique is it suggests a major leap in brain development and social behavior because this tool making, this toolkit, it involved abstract reasoning, planning depth, and hand-eye coordination. So, the cognitive skills demonstrated by Levallois technique, it include mental template because the tool maker they could see they could visualize the final shape, then the step-by-step procedure, and then the anticipation of outcome. ये सब अभी बता ही दिया आपको. And now, the survival and ecological adaptation. So, Middle Paleolithic was also a period of climatic instability, which included glacial and interglacial phases, जो अभी आपको बताया, because the Paleolithic period it also coincided with the geological milestone Pleistocene epoch. And Pleistocene epoch was a period of glacial and interglacial ages. Glacial and interglacial ages. So glacial ages में major part of Earth it is covered with snow, or interglacial में the conditions they provide a leeway or conditions are warm, and again then there is a glacial period and interglacial period. So such cyclical instabilities they provided fresh ground for adaptive pressure or fresh arsenal of adaptive pressure, selective pressure for our ancestor to evolve and to adapt themselves, to make themselves agile. Then these Levallois tools allowed humans to butcher large animal, process plant material, prepare animal hide, defense against predators, and construct shelter. Now, a departure from earlier tradition. So यहाँ पे देख सकते हैं. So in core preparation, the old one tools they had either minimal or no core at all. Where the older one too, they had no core. No core was prepared, just a simple stone. It was struck with another stone. That rugged stone was known as core, and the one it is struck, it is known as hammerstone. The older one में no core preparation. Acheulean में minimal preparation थी, just to make it labeled. But जो systematic core preparation है, it was a hallmark of Levallois technique, which was a multi-step process. Then predictability of flake in both early tradition that are associated with Homo habilis and Homo erectus, very low predictability of flakes. But during the Levallois technique, the predictability was high because of mental template and the pre-thought, the visualization in advance. Now, cognitive requirement, the basic tools, they required basic manual skill, whereas the Levallois technique, it involved advanced planning and visualization. फिर tool shape की बात करते हैं, the older one tools they were irregular and variable, whereas the Levallois tools they were symmetrical and standardized. With efficiency, which is not to be confused at the moderate versus high, and you can see the difference. Then this shift from older one and Acheulean tools to Levallois, it also marks the beginning of behavioral modernity, which is a trait associated with Homo sapiens. And the Levallois method, the Mousterian culture also laid the groundwork for Upper Paleolithic innovations. Now, the Middle Paleolithic, a time of transition and innovation. So again, the Middle Paleolithic, it bridged the gap between Low Paleolithic and more culturally complex, culturally advanced Upper Paleolithic. So what makes the Middle Paleolithic significant was the simultaneous presence of parallel evolution of both Neanderthals and anatomically modern Homo sapiens, or the early Homo sapiens that emerged, that migrated out of Africa. And during this time, we also observe a increase in technological diversity, especially the Levallois method, the prepared for technique, then the expansion of social structure, group cohesion, cooperation, division of labor, and ritualistic behavior. And there are some evidence of first signs of symbolic thinking, which might have been acted as a proto-art or proto-religion. Now, first have a look at Neanderthal life. So the Neanderthal, they lived primarily in Ice Age Europe and parts of Central and Western Asia. So most of the Neanderthal fossil, they are concentrated in France, Spain, Germany, in Iraq, in Syria, in Uzbekistan. So you can say they span from, you know, far west to Central Asia up to modern day Iraq. So it was quite a large area for any hominid species. Then the Neanderthal, they were well adapted to cold and rugged environment. These stocky bodies, strong limbs, and robust skeleton, they also help them conserve heat and survive in subarctic climate. Now, this principle you might have heard about the Allen's and Bergman rule. So Allen's and Bergman rule, oh, they are about the physical bodies of organisms that live in cold and hot environment. So first, the Bergman rule, it says that animals that live in cold environment, they usually have stocky bodies so as to conserve heat. And those in hot, they will have leaner frame so that heat can dissipate easily. Now, the Allen rule, it says the organism in cold environment, they will have short hands so as to minimize the heat loss, especially through extremities, appendages, limbs, हाथ पैर जो है वो छोटे होने चाहिए. And those in hot environment, they will have longer appendages, longer limbs, so as to dissipate, so as to exchange heat efficiently. So in that line, the physical bodies of Neanderthal, they were in line with both the rules. They had stocky bodies, strong limbs, short limbs, and robust skeleton. And their physical stature also suggests they were engaged in physically laborious tasks. And they were not just physically strong, they were also technologically skilled and socially complex. First, they mastered the Levallois technique for making efficient and standardized flake tools, and their toolkit included scrapers, points, and burins. And some evidence suggests that they were uh, capable and strategic hunters who took down large prey like mammoths and bisons. And there are also evidence that they took care for sick and elderly, such as many healed injury. There are many evidence that some people were injured, but they lived for a long time, which suggests that they might have been taken care of. Then burial practices, some caves such as the Shanida cave in Iraq, it hint possible ritual behavior. Then they make made use of fire, क्योंकि ice age environment में है तो वहाँ पे to ward off predator, cold, and to ensure cooked meal. So fire was controlled by them. फिर Homo sapiens की बात करते हैं. So Homo sapiens, they evolved in Africa, and around 300,000 years ago they showed signs of greater behavioral and cultural flexibility. Now, the key distinction of Homo sapiens from Neanderthals, that their toolkits, they included refined, symmetrical, and multifunctional tools. Now, the second important distinction, which gave Homo sapiens an important advantage over Neanderthal, was that they had greater variety of materials. The source of their tool was not just stone, but bone, antler, and ivory. And there is a clear evidence that the Homo sapiens, which evolved in Africa, it had functional symbolic activity. They made use of engrave ochre. Ochre means red and yellow pigment, which suggests that they might have used it for ornamentation or some religious purposes. Where evidences मिले हैं personal ornaments like beads, and they have been abstract carvings, all suggest symbolic thought, identity expression, early spirituality, and at broader level, they suggest higher cognitive advancement and flexibility both in the Homo sapiens of Africa. Now, the contact and interaction between Neanderthal and Homo sapiens. Around 60,000 to 50,000 years ago, the early Homo sapiens began migrating out of Africa, and eventually they reached the regions inhabited by Neanderthal, especially the Europe, the Central Asia, the West Asia. And this was a period of contact and interaction between the two species. Now, there are many theory about the intensity of that contact and interaction. So, recently, a study by Max Planck Institute, it found that the non-African population, it carry around 1 to 4% of Neanderthal DNA, 1 to 2% or 1 to 4%. The possibility varies, but yes, the non-African population, it significantly carry certain amount of DNA, which suggests that they might have intermixed, they might have interbred, and apart from this interbreeding genetic mixing, and it is also possible there was a technological and cultural exchange, because some site they show blended true tradition, means कुछ imitation, copying, influence हुआ था, and then many symbolic expression and hunting strategy might have diffused across groups. कुछ होमो सेपियन से नियंडरथल में गया, कुछ नियंडरथल से होमो सेपियंस में आया. However, I am not giving good time to this interaction, because ultimately it was the arrival of Homo sapiens, because they started around 50,000 years ago in Africa and reached around 45,000 in Europe and Central Asia. So उनका आने का टाइम और नियंडरथल के एक्सटिंक्शन का टाइम quite matches. So this cannot be coincidence. So the ultimate answer that it was because of the arrival of Homo sapiens that the Neanderthal they went into extinction, and there might have been some competition for resources, because the final years of this Pleistocene epoch around 40,000 years ago, they were quite environmentally stressing. जैसे एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ, तो इस टाइम पे जो लेट प्लेस्टोसीन है, उस टाइम पे जो ग्लेशियर और इंटरग्लेशियल साइकिल में देयर वाज अ न्यू अनप्रिडिक्टेबल एलिमेंट, like the temperature, especially in the Arctic tundra, they would rise up to 8 to 10 degrees centigrade just in decades, and then they would dip again, they would cool again for the next few decades. So this phenomena, this cyclical thing, it was quite environmentally taxing, environmentally stressful, because ऐसे में जब टेम्परेचर बहुत कम हो जाएगा, ये टेम्परेचर बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, ऐसे में जो प्रे स्पीशीज हैं दे dwindle, और अल्टीमेटली जो होमो सेपियंस या नियंडरथल जिसकी भी बात करें, अल्टीमेटली सर्वाइवल के लिए न्यूट्रिशन और प्रे दोनों चाहिए. फिर जो नियंडरथल थे, उनका टूल किट जो इट वाज क्वाइट स्पेशलाइज्ड, even though they were laborious people, hardworking people, physically strong people, but they had specialization in a certain thing. उनके टूल किट में है. फिर they were not as physically agile, as physically resilient as Homo sapiens. फिर उनका टूल किट जो है वो भी उतना एडवांस नहीं था जितना होमो सेपियंस का. दे हैड द स्टोन टूल्स, वेयर एज होमो सेपियंस जो थे उनके टूल्स, उनकी वैरायटी ज़्यादा थी. सो इस टाइम पे ये रिसोर्स कंपटीशन बहुत ज़्यादा था. तो ये जो चीज़ें हैं, ये जो पर्टिकुलर टाइम है, द फ्लक्चुएशन, साइक्लिकल फ्लक्चुएशन, It was known as Dansgaard-Oeschger event, और इनकी वजह से the Neanderthal they gradually found themselves cornered, and ultimately they went into extinction, where around 40,000 30,000 BC Neanderthals disappeared from the fossil record. So while exact reasons are still debated, कुछ बताएं आपको, but let's have a look at possible causes. First, environmental stress, fluctuating ice age climate, और उसकी वजह से हैबिटाट लॉस, फूड स्कैसिटी, ड्विंकलिंग ऑफ प्रे, जो आपको डेंसगार्ड इवेंट बताया, डेंसगार्ड अशगर इवेंट. Then demographic disadvantage. So the Neanderthals, they were already small and isolated population, and their reproductive rate were also low. फिर यहाँ पे जो anthropology के perspective से I'm going to talk about two things, like what can happen to any small and isolated population. First, inbreeding depression. Small population है, so they are going to mate among themselves. So उसकी वजह से जो genetic load है, especially the recessive genes हैं, वो उनके gene pool में increase होते जाएंगे. So this would be a negative load on the overall gene pool, which would you know reduce their fitness. एक तो ये. Then second thing is about genetic drift. So genetic drift is more like genetic chance. कि किसी भी particular small population पे the environmental condition they may act like flipping a coin. Either it is head or tail, success or failure. So some gene might be favored or some particular physical trait might be tested. So उस केस में जो small population है they usually cite of rapid advancement, क्योंकि यहाँ पे ये जो जेनेटिक ड्रिफ्ट कंडीशन है, कोई भी एक ट्रेड जो है इट गॉट फेवर्ड एंड देन स्मॉल पॉपुलेशन की वजह से रैपिड एडवांसमेंट हुआ, लेकिन साथ में यही उनका रैपिड डिक्लाइन भी हो सकता है इफ अ सर्टेन नेगेटिव ट्रेड वाज फेवर्ड. सो स्मॉल पॉपुलेशन निएंडरटल की they were already you know moving towards reduced fitness, और फिर उसमें होमोसेपियंस किंग. अब होमोसेपियंस आए और प्रेजेंट जो आप जो कोविड पेंडेमिक सिचुएशन है उसके एंगल से देखें, सो द कमिंग होमोसेपियंस दे माइट हैव ब्रॉट pathogens, the pathogens from which the Neanderthal were not immune from. So ऐसे में the contact with the Homo sapiens might have led them towards extinction. And that's a possible scenario क्योंकि COVID-19 pandemic के बाद ही जो pathogen theory है it got traction. So again ऐसा ये नहीं कह सकते कि it was just the pathogens carried by the Homo sapiens which killed them, but they were already going through so much stress. The Dansgaard-Oeschger events, the climate fluctuations, the dwindling prey, the low reproductive success, the reduced fitness, the rapid decline due to genetic drift, the isolation, the accumulation of recessive genes. All of these factors might have acted at one go at one time. So such stress, such a humongous stress might not have been tolerated by Neanderthals at one go. Then the competition with Homo sapiens. So sapiens may have outcompeted Neanderthal because they were already living under the shadow of death, and then Homo sapiens, they were quite resilient, flexible, they had large social network and better communications, and finally, because by the this latest study, the Max Planck Institute, it suggests that some Neanderthal they may have absorbed into Homo sapiens. Meanwhile, the Homo sapiens they thrive and expanded, and we are the testimony to that. So the success of Homo sapiens it is attributed to their superior cultural adaptability, the use of language and symbolic system, and the capacity for innovation. And thus, the extinction of Neanderthal, the last last hominins, and the global spread of Homo sapiens, they mark the beginning of Upper Paleolithic cultural explosion and the eventual rise of civilization. Now, I would like to highlight one more factor that the Neanderthal and Homo sapiens, they might have been sister species, but no human population that live today, that exists today, it it is directly a descendant of Neanderthal. So, in other words, we did not evolve from Neanderthal at all. We might have shared some genes. Non-African population, they might share around 1 to 4% of our gene pool with that of Neanderthal. But the modern population, कहीं की भी, केन्या की हो, नॉर्थ कोरिया की हो, चाइना की हो, उज्बेकिस्तान, मंगोलिया, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, अमेरिका, कहीं की population है, all of them, they are traced to the Homo sapiens that moved out of Africa. So those Homo sapiens are our ancestor. And one more fact is that the modern Homo sapiens and then the Homo neanderthalensis or Neanderthal, both of them, they share a common ancestor somewhere around 600,000 years ago, a Homo erectus species, possibly the Homo heidelbergensis. But it is completely right that none of us, none of the present Homo sapiens evolved directly from Neanderthal. Now, the social and cultural advancements. So, the Middle Paleolithic, it was not only significant for technological innovation, but it also saw the social and cultural development of Homo sapiens and Neanderthal. And both of these groups, they show clear signs of structure, group living, coordinated behavior, cooperative strategies, and care for the elderly, sometimes ritual behavior, symbolic thinking. So, uh, let's have a look at this rise of cooperative living. So, the evidence suggests that Middle Paleolithic hominin group, both Neanderthal and early Homo sapiens, they lived in small and mobile band composed of 20 to 50 individuals, and these bands likely shared food and resources, protected each other from predators, worked together during hunting expeditions. So this group cohesion, it shows that the dependence on social bond for survival, which has been a hallmark for our species, and it is still is, like even in the modern time, in the modern polity, which perpetuate or which support, promote individualism, but ultimately we have thrived, we have survived because of this group dynamic, and it will be our hallmark. And now, the third thing, the social role and the emergence of division of labor. So when the society becomes complex, so the behavior they also become complex. वो कैसे कि when we started moving from older one to the Levallois technique, the one thing that has changed, it is the specialization of function or the complexity of function. Now, older one tools, they were simple, just strike a core with the hammerstone. The Levallois, it needed strategic planning and many more attributes, many more features. So this complexity, it also suggests that a single person could not have executed all the functions simultaneously. Some group division, some task division was there, some division of labor was there, because उसके अलावा ये जो task हैं ये complete नहीं हुए थे, because this single process it involves multiple steps, preparation of core, then the application of principle, then polishing, फिर hefting, ये सब 4 या 5 स्टेप एक सिंपल टूल के कंस्ट्रक्शन में, फिर उसके बाद हंटिंग भी है, द केयर फॉर एल्डरली भी है. सो इस तरह से द डिवीजन ऑफ लेबर would have been there, and this division of labor would have been a precursor to the proto society, आज की सोसाइटी का एक सिंपल प्रोटोटाइप. Then, although the full-blown social hierarchy likely came later, but the division of labor suggests that the social hierarchy were forming, they were already in place by Middle Paleolithic. and different individual may have their own set of tasks like hunting, gathering, tool making, caring for young, and the elder members they might have served as knowledge keepers or decision makers. They might have been some specialized tool makers or skilled hunters. So the task specialization was there because it would have made the group life more efficient. ये टास्क स्पेशलाइजेशन आज भी होता है, जैसे मैं टीचर हूँ, मुझे अपना काम करना आता है, वैसे ही एक मिलिट्री पर्सनल को उसका काम आता है, एक पॉलिटिकल स्ट्रेटजिस्ट को उसका काम आता है, एक फार्मर को उसका काम आता है. सो टास्क स्पेशलाइजेशन, it also task specialization and division of labor also had been a hallmark, an important feature never to be looked down upon, because this group dynamic was our survival weapon, our survival arsenal, and this have made us survive for this long. Then task specialization alone was not sufficient because this division of labor also needed coordination, and coordination needed communication and trust. So all of these are signs of a maturing social structure. And finally, in essence, the early humans, whether Neanderthal or Homo sapiens, they began to develop a proto-social system where each member played a role, and the success of the group it depended on collective effort. So that was the encapsulated version of our success. That the success of Homo sapiens, it is not a one-man army or one person's effort. It is dependent on the collective effort. Now let's move on to cooperative hunting and shared success. The second thing that might have been our survival tool was the success of this cooperative hunting, because cooperative hunting it yield large and dangerous animal, and large and dangerous animal means high risk high reward activity. क्योंकि अगर एक बड़ा जानवर like mammoth, a wild horse, an elephant, if that large animal is killed, so even if it is a high risk but it is also a high reward activity. एक बड़ा जानवर आएगा तो बहुत सारा मीट आएगा, तो बहुत सारे जो लोग हैं उनका सर्वाइवल इंश्योर हो जाएगा. So such large hunt it required strategic planning and possibly communication cues like gesture, sound, or some form of proto-language. Then the role differentiation for different people like drivers, ambushers, finishers, scrappers, hunters. Then there might have been some post-hunt coordination activity like butchering, processing, and sharing the kill. So this kind of organized activity it provided massive caloric reward. जो अभी आपको बताया, large animal means large amount of meat, and this massive calorie intake or massive calorie reward might have made survival more sustainable, especially in colder climate. And there are evidences such as from Spain in Torralba and Ambrona, which are associated with the Neanderthal. It show the evidence of organized group hunting of megafauna, a large animal, and this might have used planning, cooperation, and possibly leadership. Now let's move on to social bonds, care, and emotional complexity. So there are many evidence which suggest that both the group Neanderthal and Homo sapiens both cared for injured, sick, and the elderly. And there are evidence that there are some people who survived serious injuries for a long time, had limited mobility but lived for years. And there are certain people like from Germany, there is an evidence that there was a man without any teeth, but he survived long. So this person would not have survived without group assistance or competition or compassion. So the evidence suggests the beginning of altruism, empathy, emotional depth, and all these features they suggest group cohesion or possibly uh, the later the social dynamics. Now let's talk about Middle Paleolithic evidences. The first The basic again, the Middle Paleolithic from 300,000 to 40,000 years ago. The it began with the transition from older one tools to the complex culture. It bridges the gap between older one tools to the complex tools of Upper Paleolithic. And this period also saw the Levallois Technique, advanced cognitive abilities, planning, abstract thought, and the emergence of proto-social structures such as group cooperation, care for the elderly and injured, and possibly symbolic behavior. And this Middle Paleolithic, it is associated with Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens who moved out of Africa. Now अब बात करते हैं Middle Paleolithic sites in India. So first is Zanganakalu. I don't know if there is a right pronunciation, Zanganakalu. This site is located in Karnataka, and the excavation they had provided Levallois flakes, scrapers, choppers, and points. एंड यूपीएससी और यूजीसी दोनों के हिसाब से बस आपको ये साइट याद रखनी है, और जो फॉसिल्स हैं या जो एक्सकेवेशंस हैं, डिस्कवरीज हैं, वो ध्यान रखें. देन दे हैव बीन स्टोन हट्स, स्टोन का चूल्हा, एश लेयर्स व्हिच suggest the control use of fire, and many animal bones were found with cut marks which suggest butchery and meat processing. Then the presence of both tool making and habitation indicators suggests that the Sanganakalu was not a temporary camp, but might have been a habitation site. Where the second site is in Tamil Nadu, the Atirampakam, which is situated in Portalayar River Basin. Atirampakam is one of the oldest and significant Middle Paleolithic site in India. Where this site is also important because it features during the time of Homo erectus, so it has a long cultural sequence from Acheulean to Middle Paleolithic industries. Then यहाँ पे जो tools मिले हैं, the flake based implement, they use the Levallois technique, where this site, it has been dated, and it which place it to Middle Paleolithic around 385,000 years ago, which is older than the sites found in Europe. Where the other sites across India, first such as in Maharashtra, which suggests transition from Acheulean to Middle Paleolithic, tools were made from basalt. Then Bhimbetka, so ये site तो बहुत important है, because like Atirampakam, it also saw a gradual transition, gradual habitation from lower Paleolithic to the upper Paleolithic. Then the next site is Didwana. So here stratified evidence of Levallois cores and flakes have been found. And then Namada and Son Valley, which reflect river-based settlements. Now let's have a look at the global Middle Paleolithic sites from Africa, Europe, and Asia. The first such site in Africa is Jebel Irhoud in Morocco. So here the earliest known fossil of anatomically modern humans dated around 300,000 were found, and these fossils, they were associated with the Levallois flake tools. Then the next site is Kapthurin in Kenya, and this site provide evidence from transition from Acheulean to Middle Stone Age blade tools. And both these sites, they demonstrate that modern Homo sapiens, they were developing sophisticated cultural behavior long before they left the continent. This is a very important insight for both UPSC and UGC. Where Europe में, which was a stronghold of Neanderthal, so two sites, La Mustia and La Farazi. So यहाँ पे Musterian tools were found which were associated with the Neanderthal. Musterian sites means the site which first site where it was found, the La Musterian, उसकी वजह से ये site है, and they were associated with the Neanderthal, but the tool method is the same, the Levallois method. Then the La Farazi, it also showed burials with that of children, which might suggest social care and ritual practices. Then the Shanida cave in Iraq. So it is located in Western Asia, but it is associated with the Neanderthals. Here, the remains of individuals with disabilities were found, which suggests that they were likely cared by the group. And in some site, there were floral pollen, which suggests symbolic burial practices or the beginning of burial practices. Where Middle East and Central Asia, that is at the crossroad of both the hominins, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. So that these two caves, Kafze and Tabun caves in Israel, and they show evidence of early Homo sapiens and Neanderthal cohabitation. And they are presence of burial with grave goods and Levallois tools. Then the other site is from Uzbekistan, Tashik Tash, and here a Neanderthal child was buried surrounded by ibex horn, which might suggest ritualistic behavior. And this site also important because it shows the Neanderthal presence in the Central Asia. And finally, the Denisova cave in Siberia. So here, fossil remains of Denisovans found. Denisovans are extinct now, and the tools here they suggest interaction between Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo sapiens, and also suggest interbreeding. Now let's have a look at technological and cultural commonalities between these groups. So here the Middle Paleolithic, it shares some similarities. First, the Levallois techniques, they were widely used. Toolkits included scrapers, points, and blades. Then the sites, they included hearths, living space, and possible rudimentary settlement patterns. They were signs of cooperative hunting and division of labor, differentiation of labor, and some sites suggest evidence of symbolism and ritualistic behavior. Now, the role of symbolism and cognitive development in the Middle Paleolithic period, especially looked by the cognitive leap in human evolution. So, this period also saw the emergence of symbolic behavior, abstract thought, and emotional complexity. And this period also, this, these developments are also crucial because they reflect the beginning of modern human consciousness. So, in other words, the symbolic behavior includes the ability to think symbolically, which means to allow objects, gesture, or action to represent idea of belief, which is a defining trait of Homo sapiens, and that trait is absent in both Homo habilis and Homo erectus. Now, the symbolic expression. So there were many evidence of material artifacts which suggest that both Neanderthal and Homo sapiens they were engaged in some form of symbolic thinking. First is about body adornments and ornaments क्योंकि बहुत सारी जगह पे एविडेंस मिले हैं about perforated shells. Perforated shells means जो shells होती है जो marine shells they have been drilled, they holes have been made into them जैसे माला बनाने के लिए. So they might have been used as beads or pendants. Then animal teeth and bones they were shaped or polished for decorative purposes. उसके भी evidence मिले हैं. And they have been possible use of ochre pigments, might have been for body painting or ceremonial marking. Or evidence they include the Blombos cave in South Africa where engraved ochre pieces and shell beads they were found. Then in France, Grotte du Rennes, this site has yielded the ornaments associated with Neanderthals, which suggest symbolic behavior. Now, finally, the conclusion. So, the Middle Paleolithic period, it was a big change, a time of big change for early humans, and कुछ कुछ जो commonalities हैं, common themes हैं, वो तो सामने आई गई है. Levallois technique, smarter thinking, symbolic thinking, and this was also a time of interaction between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, and Evidence suggests that both humans and Neanderthal they took care of their injured members, and there have been evidence of burial and symbolic art, which suggests some form of social hierarchy and proto-social system was also developing. And this period it also set the stage for complex Upper Paleolithic. Now this is it, and here is my request. Support free education. If you have found these lectures helpful, you can support my work with a voluntary contribution. This is my UPI, and any amount is appreciated. And और कुछ है जो सही से नहीं हुआ है, समझाया नहीं है, that I might not have gone in a better way, so you can drop the comments. और ये नोट्स की जो PDF है ये भी आपको अगर स्टडी मटेरियल में चाहिए तो I will add this in description. This is it. Thank you very much. Keep supporting.